So we're condemning that. You're harming children. We condemn that action.
Yeah.
That action is evil.
I would watch these videos and it would entice me to be angry. So then I would look at them like they're opposite from us. They're not with us. But that is not the nature that we should be involved in. This gentleman that I was talking to, I mean, his own family took advantage of him. If he's going out into the world and he's standing there and standing up for what he believes in, because in this moment, he thinks that the people he's with is actually rooting for him. When I came at it within a loving approach and I talked to that gentleman, I realized that like there is a way out of this without raising a sword. Is just raising a hand to lift them.
I'm just playing, I don't fight, I do pray. I only go the way of Mr. Yahweh.
It's not often I sit down with somebody and they say something that makes me think.
Well,
this was great.
I love you guys.
But you give me something to think about.
My own damn way.
I had a lot of fun on this interview.
Wait, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
38.
Damn. You got that like man charisma. I thought you were like 48.
48?
Yeah, no disrespect to your looks. It was the beard and the. You look like you just came from the woods and you just chopped down a tree and showed your kids.
I don't take it as an insult. People think I'm older. I don't know why people take it as an insult. I don't.
Well, I'm glad you don't.
It's a maturity in your old soul, and you have a lot of children.
Can I
do.
just
I have
one
6
second?
kids.
I'm so sorry. Welcome back, guys. I'm here with Matt Walsh. Guys, we have been having some incredible guests, but this is one I'm excited because I'm not gonna lie, man. You're the type of content creator that when I watch you debate with people, I just caught myself looking at you for like hours. And you, Ben Shapiro, when you guys go at it, it's quite fun to watch. And I see that you have a project coming out called "Am I Racist?"
Am I racist? That's the film.
I want to talk about this. But before I even get into this, like what made you get into the field of like standing up and fighting for your rights, right? Because we have all types of men that might understand your point of view, but they kind of just hang back and like, I'm not going to get into this. Right. But you basically put your whole life on this. And it's kind of like there's no take backsies on this type of thing. You know, like what you've said online is basically out there for everybody to hear.
That's true.
Yeah. So one, where did you get the confidence to go and do this? Because a lot of men are trying to search for that type of confidence. And then second, what was it that motivated you to like, all right, this, I'm going in. Frick this. I'm trying to stop swearing. My bad.
It's okay. You're not going to offend me. I think some
you
of
look
it,
like you get offended easily. I'm not going to
lie. Some of it I've always just... some of it's like contrarian. I can't take credit for a lot of it. I'm also just always been sort of contrarian by nature.
I'm so sorry, bro. What does that mean?
Contrarian's like you disagree with people.
Oh, you're that guy?
He's like trying to find a reason to disagree.
I love that movie. It was so good. I think
Exactly.
you're that guy.
I'm totally that guy by nature,
Yeah.
so I recognize that. But that works to my advantage in a culture that's gone completely insane. I like enjoy being the guy who's disagreeing. And it just so happens that, it's like the culture's wrong about everything. So if you're disagreeing with it, you're probably right most of the time.
So your whole life, you're like, my God, these talents, where do they lie?
When you're
And they're giving you ideas to do.
Yeah.
You should be like, I disagree with you, actually. Look, it's strong.
Exactly. That's really what it is. When you're a contrarian asshole, you have to like, what do I do with this? How do I harness this ability?
You're married.
I am married. Yeah.
How do you deal with this with your wife?
Yeah, it doesn't pay as well to be a contrarian in your marriage, so you have to try to bottle that in a little bit. I think there has to be a little bit more
give and take,
a little more compromise. I mean, it's also not that I know there's some married guys who, and it kind of annoys me. The married guys are like, oh yeah, I never win an argument with my wife. She'll have me sleeping on the couch in no time. I don't do that kind of thing. Yeah, we'll have disagreements. Sometimes I do win. Sometimes my wife will actually say, okay, you know what, you're right about that. It does happen.
And then you send her on the couch.
Right, then she has to sleep on the couch.
Please.
Exactly.
How'd you guys meet?
We actually met online. We
Really?
met, yeah.
Tinder?
No, this was before. This is the ancient times. This was back in the old days.
MySpace.
Christian Mingle?
eHarmony.
No way.
eHarmony.
No,
I
no.
did.
Are you
Wow.
serious?
Dead serious.
You matched with your wife on eHarmony?
I did.
Dude, that is incredible.
Yeah. She doesn't like it when I admit that publicly, and now I'm saying it here, but
I love that.
I'm not
okay.
embarrassed by
My
it.
man.
Yeah,
Why
whatever.
be embarrassed? You got yourself a wife, got some kids.
It worked out.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
I was on the site like for 5 seconds, it felt like.
Look at you. Of
Wow.
course you are. She
And,
swiped as soon as she saw you.
Well, I just got it's the first person, and it worked out. And we've been married for 13 years. We have 6 kids. So
Well, I pray that it keeps going.
Congratulations.
6 kids. Are you Mormon?
no, I'm not Catholic.
Catholic.
So you hear 6 kids, it's either Mormon, Catholic, or Orthodox Jew. So we're Catholic.
Okay, good. You're
Yeah.
repping the team, man.
Yeah.
How many
Yeah.
boys? How many girls?
We have 4 boys, 2 girls. We had 2 sets of twins. So we started with twins.
I might actually have twins. My parents just told me about this. They're like, yeah, it skips a generation. I go, well, who's it on? They're like, you. And I was
It's
like,
on
oh,
you, yeah.
damn.
It does run in the family. So, and here's the thing: once you have, and I didn't know this, we learned, but once you have one set of twins, your likelihood of having a second set is pretty high. So we started with twins, and then we had 2 other kids, and then we just had twins again.
Really?
No way.
So yeah,
Can I ask you something about the twins?
yeah, sure.
Like, is there one that you like more? You don't have to say who.
can't-
What? He doesn't have to admit it.
There's not. I mean, there are.
You messed it up, dude. He was about to say something.
No, the honest truth is, like, this is a thing I know when I was a kid, I always assumed that when you're a parent, there's no way you could love all your kids the same because that's, like, parental love works. But in real life, it's like you have, you don't look at anybody the same. You have people that you prefer over other people.
Mm-hmm.
But
we
then
know who that is, right, Jess?
Right. But it's true. Like in a friend group, even in a family, like with siblings, you have certain people you gravitate towards. But at least in my experience with kids, it really is, you do love them all the same. It really is true. I mean, there are certain kids who might be annoying you, particularly on certain days, but...
Is there one that you're like, man, this one's special. I see him disagreeing with everyone.
I have noticed that instinct in my oldest daughter in particular. She's got, yeah.
So, okay.
We might have a future podcaster on our hands.
I would love to
God
to
forbid.
see her right there next to you, and then
I wouldn't.
Her just squeezing out all of your secrets.
No, I'd say go do anything else with your life.
Okay,
Don't do.
When you disagree with a family member, like your daughter, the one that you might have a little bump heads with, nothing serious, but you're debating with her. Do you take that approach with a stranger on the street, or you're like, nah, this guy could get it, and just smoke him? Is there a different type of mindset you have?
Yeah, well, with my kids, it's not so much a debate because we're not on equal. Well, I guess it depends on what the subject is, but most of the time, if my kid's trying to argue with me, we're not having an argument. You have to listen because I'm the parent here, so we're not.
I respect that. Of course.
So I don't have to convince you. If I tell you to clean your room, I don't have to convince you that you should. It doesn't work that way. You just need to clean your room because you have to respect the fact that I'm dad. So debates with kids is a little bit. It's a little bit of a different vibe.
How old is your?
Yeah. Sorry. Did
How
you?
old-
You go ahead. And
How
action.
old? How old and did I have?
Yes.
How old is your
How old did
eldest
you have?
daughter? Because I was wondering if, like once she gets to a certain age, she's going to be learning about topics in school. And then she's going to be like, what do you think about this, Dad?
Yeah, she's 11. She's 11.
Okay, so she's not there yet.
But yeah, that'll. I mean, we haven't quite got to the point where she would try to argue with me on on an issue or something.
Oh, dang. Are you worried about that?
No, I think that'd be fine. I think when she forms like a point of view on some issue in the world and in the news or something, and she wants to talk about it, I think that's great. It's great practice for being a critical thinker. That would be the kind of conversation or debate that I would welcome with my kids. I think you have to teach your kids how to be critical thinkers.
Of course. Decide for yourself, but do your own homework. Don't just go with the flow.
Right.
Do you guys have debates at the dinner table?
Again, not really, because the kids are too young. I mean, it's.
Sorry, I just
When I
want to
was-
sit there at dinner watching you guys all eat. Phones away. But why, Dad? Why does phones need to be away? And then you just
with my family. I have 5 brothers and sisters, and so I have 6 kids. I came from a family with 6 kids, and
6 is a number for you guys.
it's a number, yeah.
Any more?
For me,
Yeah.
I don't. We'll see what God has
Yeah,
in
you're
store.
so young, dude.
Well, I don't know if it's on camera, but you said that I look like I'm 48.
Yeah, you do.
So-
I was being nice too, dude. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Please. Oh my God.
Really, you think I could pass for 50s?
No, you could definitely pass in your 40s for sure.
Okay.
For sure in your 40s.
Well, that's what I was saying. I don't take that as an insult. I
Me
think it's
neither,
so,
dude. I've always
it's
looked like I
so
was that
dumb
age.
when people get embarrassed about their age, or you
Yeah.
ask them how old they are, and they don't want to tell you. Like, why is that? Why is it embarrassing that you've I'm 38. I'm not embarrassed that I've existed for 38 years. What's embarrassing about that?
I don't know.
It's a dumb
That's so
hang
true when
up.
you put it that way.
I think it's a young mind thing because they're scared of getting old.
I mean, it might be. Yeah, I guess they fear death or something. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know why. It wasn't always like that. I mean, it's traditionally in society, you revere people who are older. It's a point of pride. If somebody lived to be 72 or something, they'd be proud of that.
Yeah.
It's only now where you ask a 72-year-old how old you are and how old they are. They say, "Well, I'm 29 in spirit," or something dumb like that.
I think it's probably because this mentality of now everybody wants to look so young and they don't want to look aged, and it's just women are always chasing looking young. And so I think that's what
Yeah,
put
but why?
it in
But
their
that's what I
heads.
don't get. It's like, but look the age you are.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I mean, you're not doing that, but yeah.
Or look older. Look the age you are, or even older is the way I look at it.
All right. Well, speaking of fears, a lot of people's fears are like.
So sorry.
So sorry about that. Hey, can we scratch the cat out of the set, Reed? Could you grab him? You obviously smell
okay with
amazing.
cats?
And my cat Leonardo DiCaprio.
Cats, you know what? Cats actually like me. I have a cat. I mean, I don't have a cat. My daughter does, but
Cats like you?
they
I like
do.
that.
I don't.
Yeah, he never does that.
Okay. I don't like them, but they like me. So
Look at you, just disagreeing with cats as well.
part of my
crazy,
contrarian,
dude.
part of the contrarian thing.
All right, so a lot of people have a lot of fears. You're saying some people are fear of growing older. A lot of people have fear of public speaking, and you are doing one of the toughest things. It's not only public speaking, but publicly speaking about things that people don't even want to talk about in an elevator. So, this new project that you have, Am I Racist? What stemmed this idea and approach to this project?
So we made. I made a movie called "What Is a Woman" that came out a few years ago, and that was about gender ideology and transgenderism, and you know the whole idea there. It's all in the title that these people that are pushing this agenda, they can't even tell you what a woman is, and which sort of takes down the whole house of cards. The fact that they can't, you know, if you're a man, you say identify as a woman, and someone says, well, what is that? What are you identifying as? And they can't tell you. Well, then, like, it's obviously this whole thing falls apart. So we made that. I think had a real impact in the culture. We were very blessed to see the success that it had. And then it was sort of like, well, I know I have to make another movie. And part of it also is I do a daily podcast in kind of my day job, I guess.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know this in the content generation game, it can be kind of demoralizing because especially if you're making a daily podcast, you make a podcast, you put it out in the world. The next day, nobody cares anymore what you said yesterday. It's all like on to the next thing. Nobody remembers anything for more than 10 seconds anymore.
Yeah.
And then you make a movie and you realize it's possible to spend time making one piece of content and you put it out in the world, and people will remember it. It'll have an impact that lasts longer than 5 seconds. And
have you ever thought about acting before that?
No, I'm not really. I mean, I thought about filmmaking. I think in broad terms, but no, I didn't have any idea about like what that would look like, how I would do that.
Yeah.
So once we did that, it was like, well, we know I have to make another movie. I can't go back to just like feeding the content mill every day.
Yeah. Now you're doing something for your soul instead of just put it into
and for the culture, I think hopefully. And so then there was a question of like, well, what's the next big topic? We hit gender, LGBT, transgenderism. It's a big area of cultural concern. What's the other big one? It's pretty clearly race.
Yeah.
And so we decided that has to be the topic. And then it's like, well, it's a broad topic. So what's the access point for this and how do you approach it? And we sort of decided that with What Is a Woman, I was kind of skeptical, kind of a blank slate going around asking questions. I didn't have a point of view of my own in the film. And with this, we thought it'd be an interesting strategy if instead of being skeptical, I'll start by asking questions to these race hustlers, these DEI people, anti-racist, so-called experts. I'll start with asking them questions, and I'll just believe whatever they tell me in the film, and I'll let them guide me down the rabbit hole. I'll believe whatever they tell me. I'll try to put into practice whatever they say, and we'll see where it takes us. We'll see where do we end up 90 minutes later into the film if I'm actually believing all of this stuff. And that's the journey of the movie. And it goes to some...
So this is real. These are not actors.
Yeah, it's all real.
So like this is like the Bo Rat effect, right? Like it's like this character's fake, but we're dropping him into reality.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a similar idea.
How
Yeah.
did you get these people to sign off? Because you need their permission to like use their face.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to go into all the details of
because it's a secret.
Of making the sausage. Well, they signed waivers. I can tell you that.
Got it.
They all agreed to.
Because what you're doing is hard, and I don't think people understand this. That's why I'm trying to get to that level, because I see a lot of my friends do this. It's almost tougher than making a movie, because you're working with people that don't even know what the magic is.
It is. It's hard. It is difficult, but they all did agree. They signed waivers. It's all legal. It's all above the board. But it is all real. There's no scripts. We didn't tell anybody what to say. But it is hard, just on the movie making end of it, because you're dealing with people who don't really know what the movie is. You're trying to tell it's a movie, so you want to tell a story like in any movie. But you can't script it because you don't know what the other people are going to say or do. And
It's
so
an improv type of thing.
Right. We're kind of like coming up with the story as we go along because we have no choice. We have to, if we go into a situation, we know that, okay, we want to film these people. We want to film this event. We want to do an interview with this person. I have no clue how it's going to go or how they're going to respond to the things that I'm going to say and do.
The trailer looks incredible. Especially the end where she's like, you got to be careful.
Yeah, that's Robin DiAngelo.
You can never be too careful. I know when you said that line, in your heart, you're like, dang, that's making the trailer. Did you think that in your heart?
I did, actually. when we finish some of these shoots, we'll have our director, Justin Folk, will say that was the trailer moment. Yeah. So we knew that was a trailer moment there.
Is it the same cast and crew from your last project?
Yeah, it's mostly all the same guys.
How long does it take to shoot this type of project?
Honestly, for this one, What Is Woman took about 7 or 8 months. This one was over a year, and part of that was because we thought we finished it back about almost maybe 9 or 10 months ago, and then you send it in for notes, and you send it in, and you go into the post production period, and we realized through that process that we were just missing. We were missing some big pieces in the film. Like it just wasn't. It was good, but it wasn't. There was something. It's like a certain pop it didn't have. It was like a certain kind of narrative coherence.
It wasn't ready yet.
Yeah, it wasn't ready. We were missing something. We had to figure out what that was, and we had to go out and film some more stuff, and we did. I think we ended up in the right spot.
What is the most interesting thing that you happened during this experience? Like something that really stood out to you that?
I mean, so it's a lot of interesting things happened. Unfortunately, much of it, especially in the moment, was pretty depressing. There were some surprises. Like one of the things we do in the film, like I said, I'm on this journey to be an anti-racist. I'm on a journey to I become a real DEI expert, and I get certified as a DEI consultant. But part of that journey is you have to be an activist, and so we knew there has to be a piece of the film where I engage in activism, and so we thought that. What would be fun is to go to D.C., to go to the Washington Monument, the George Washington Monument, and have a petition and try to get people to sign the petition to change the George Washington Monument to the George Floyd Monument. And going into this, I thought like it's probably not going to work. No one's going to sign this damn thing because that's ridiculous. Like who's going to sign to change the George Washington Monument to the George Floyd Monument? But almost everyone we stopped signed it. Like we had trouble finding anyone who wouldn't sign it. Dozens of people.
Were you at the moment where you were like, am I on the wrong team?
It feels weird because I'm like, it's like for the movie, we need people to sign it.
Yeah.
But
in real life,
I don't want them to.
Yeah.
Bro, you're encouraging people to go sign. What if somebody that you had signed, they're like, yeah, and then now they just dedicated their life into making sure that happens?
Yeah. What if it actually happens now? I mean, we're rapidly reaching that point. So there's a lot of stuff like that where it's kind of like that. I'm walking down a path, and we want to see if anyone's going to go there with me, and. For the sake of society, I don't want them to, but for the movie, we need them to, and they almost always do, and it's pretty.
I got a tough question. I bet I feel like you're really good at tough questions, so I don't even know why I even.
Go hit me with it.
This is more of a sympathetic type of viewpoint. You disagree, yes, but that woman that was completely out of line in the trailer, right? She's in complete wrong, and I disagree with everything she's doing. But when she's like, "I hate America. I don't give a shit what happens to America," very, very dumb point of view. Shouldn't be shared. She probably shouldn't have any superpower to like convince other people otherwise. I do feel like that's a form of terrorism. Are you not worried about patriotic people that are very, very passionate about this type of conversation now recognizing what this woman looks like and now endangering her life when like, do you get what I'm saying?
I certainly wouldn't. I would not want that to happen. I'd condemn anyone who would, obviously violence is not acceptable. I'm not too worried about that. I don't think that.
You don't think anybody's going to take it there?
I don't think so.
But you also didn't think people were going to sign that piece of paper.
Well, that's true. But but I will say that look, like I said, we made What Is a Woman. It's a similar kind of approach, and nothing like that happened to any of the people.
They don't ever try to sue you afterwards.
And also, by the way, we are not tricking anyone into saying something they don't believe.
No, I know.
Right. And in that particular, the woman you're talking about, that's the Race to Dinner. That's Syra Rao and Regina Jackson. They host what's called Race to Dinner. I don't know if have you heard of that?
I haven't. I only got introduced by you.
Okay. So Race to Dinner is these two women, you pay them and they'll come to dinner and they'll sit at your dinner table and they'll call you racist for 2 hours. They'll explain for 2 hours why you're racist. And you pay them thousands of dollars to do this.
Dude, are they dumb or smart? Because at this point, I'm starting to look at these people might be geniuses.
They started this business? Like, this is like a business?
It's a business, yeah.
Great question,
it's only white women. Only white women are allowed to have these dinners. So they go to dinners with white women and they spend 2 hours telling the white women why they're racist. So this is what she does for a living. This is her business. This is what she does.
Yeah.
And all we're doing is showing people that this is what this person does and believes. And
who pays for that, though?
The women that hold the dinner, they pay for it.
But like,
now,
why?
in our case, so I heard of Race to Dinner a few years ago, and we decided to make this movie. I knew that like we need to get this. We need this in the movie, and I need to be at one of these dinners. And we actually called them to see if if I could attend. And they told us that you have to be a woman. They only allow women to attend.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because
that's going against what they're trying to be
right.
about.
Well, it goes back to the first movie, which is like, well, what is a woman? And we actually asked them that. We said, well, what if, could it be trans or something? And they said, well, it has to be someone who's socialized as a woman, which is their way of saying it has to be a real woman, right? So I couldn't sit at the table. But what we discovered is that you have to be a woman to sit at the table, but you don't have to be a woman to be a waiter. And so I was able to get into the room as a waiter.
How did you get the job? Dude, you're all these magical questions, and it's the sauce.
It's very, with great difficulty, I'll say.
It's interesting that, to me, and I don't know anything about these women, but it's interesting that two white women would want to take on the hat to advocate for race, and I'm sure they're advocating, to stand up for black people and Asians and all around. And I think it's just interesting that they thought that they could speak better, for other races, when I think that it should be someone who actually knows what it's like to, live as the race to be advocating for it, right?
Yeah. Well, right. You're right. And there's a lot of that kind of arrogance with these people that they think they can speak for entire races.
Right.
They think they can tell you, like, what's in your own. They think they can read your mind. They can tell you what you're thinking and feeling. So if you go to one of these anti-racist educators as a white person, and you tell them, well, I don't need what you're selling because I'm not racist. Well, they'll tell you that no, you are racist, and the fact that you think you're not racist is all the more proof that you are racist, because they know better than you what's in your own mind, what's in your own heart. That's what they tell people this, and they've maybe to you and I, it's like it's obviously absurd, but a lot of people are very susceptible to it and fall into it. It becomes a very cult-like mentality. At the Race to Dinner, again, it's like 2 hours in real time, and I'm in the room listening, and they're just breaking these women down. It's a very real kind of brainwashing session.
And the girls are going along with it?
Yeah, berating them, lecturing them, having them share, go around the table, share moments in your life when you were racist, confess your racism. And the women would all go around and they'd share their racist moments. But the racist moments are all things that are like, that isn't racist. I think one of the women said, her racist moment was she called the police, I think, on a black guy. But it was justified. It's like, well, sometimes you got to call the police on somebody. And Syra Rao said, well, no, you can't call the police. You never do that. You don't call the police on a black man. Like, what if he's in the process of stabbing you? Can you call him then? Apparently not. So it's. Do
you ever get any pushbacks in real life? Like if you're ever going to like grocery store or like you're out in dinner with your family, does anybody ever come up to you and be like, "How dare you think I'm not racist"?
In general, every once in a while, not as often as you might think. I'd say 99.9% of the interactions I have in public are really positive.
That says a lot.
But there's a 0.1% that is not, and so every once in a while, somebody will come up and they're not fans, and they'll let me know it. It's never gotten violent or anything like that. It's just like unpleasant.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even care about that, except for the fact that I'm with my kids in public a lot, and so every once in a while you get someone who comes up, and I'm with my kids, and they want to get into it, and I have to say I'm not going to talk about this with you with my kids. You know,
Yeah.
You need to respect the fact that my kids are here.
Because they're probably passionate and saying like disrespectful things.
Right.
Do you ever, do you know where you're going with this thing? Like, for example, like podcasting, I'm like, oh, like, I want to spread the word of God, but also want to tell jokes, make people laugh. What is your bigger picture? What, like, before you leave the earth, what's your stamp left behind?
Well, I want to continue with the filmmaking. You know, that's. I think I've found it took me 38 years, I guess, but
You found your passion.
yeah, I think I found the lane where I feel like I have the most to offer, and I'm the best. I'm good at this kind of thing. I do, like I said, I've been doing podcasting for, I don't know, 6 years, 7 years.
Damn.
And
Let's go. What made you get into podcasting?
well, I started in radio when I was 20. I moved out of my parents' house. I went and got a job in rock music radio.
Nice.
Cool.
Were you ever in a band?
No, I wasn't in a band, but I was overnight. I did the overnight shift on a rock station when I was like 20.
That must have been very interesting.
It was. It's like a kind of depressing because it was like small market, very small market. There's like 5 people listening at 3 a.m.
Did you get phone-ins?
Yeah, there's 5 people listening. They're all drunk or high, and those are it's like the same dudes that call, to request. I become their personal jukebox for these drunk people.
It's Todd here, 8th time caller.
Right, exactly. 8th time tonight calling, and I want to hear the same Nickelback song again. So I started in that. I was in radio for a while, and eventually got into, conservative media, and then started the podcast 6-7 years ago. But
what made that push? Like, what made you go from like heavy metal, rock music, smoking pot? Do you smoke pot or not?
no, I don't.
Never?
I'm not going to say never, but not as an adult.
Yeah, same.
I just don't look. I don't. It's not for me. I don't. I mean, are you?
I smoke once in a while. But I feel like you get high, paranoid, and just start debating with yourself.
Yeah, I also think that it just has a different effect. It's like I'll drink socially, and to me, I know that the people that love pot or they get very passionate about it, and they'll say that this is actually better for you than drinking. Which, I'm not going to pretend I know all the studies and all that kind of stuff.
I don't think it's bad. I think they're both bad for you. I just like
They're not great, but I will say that just like socially, okay. I'll put it this way: if I'm in the room with someone, and I'm in the room with someone, and they're just sipping on some whiskey, not like getting shit faced, but just taking a sip, it's fine. And in fact, the interaction with them can become even more enjoyable because they loosen up a little bit.
Yeah.
They'll have. But you're in a room with someone who's been smoking pot, and they just become like insufferable to be around, boring. They think they're interesting, but they're not. I just think it has like this antisocial. Am I wrong? It has an antisocial effect that alcohol doesn't.
Yeah.
Anyway, I can't remember why we got off on that, but
I'm so sorry. Because, dude, I keep picturing you now behind a desk, like spinning some records and just like, all right, next up, Nickelback. And then just like you playing it. So I'm just trying to see how this character became this character.
This was radio. This was about 30 years after anyone was spinning records on radio. This was all. That's the other thing that made it depressing is that it's all computer. So you don't even do anything. You actually don't. You just hit play, and they have the playlist already loaded, and you just sit there.
No, but you do the very important thing while the music's playing. You say something special and cut it off right before the guy starts singing.
Oh, yeah. Georgia likes to do that in the car.
I was terrible at that because I'm kind of long-winded. So I would talk. I'd get in trouble with our program director because I'd have like 5 minutes of things I wanted to say, and I'm talking over the music after the singing starts.
Bob's calling back in. Can you replay it, man? Like, I missed the whole beginning.
Literally, that would happen. Like, there'd be people calling, complaining because I'm talking too much.
It's so funny.
And they say, just play the music, man.
Maybe podcasting's your thing, dude. Maybe go to podcasting.
Well, podcasting hadn't been invented yet, but I discovered that's really that was more my speed.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you got caught up, and now you're doing projects that you're in love with. I want to go back to the whole. There's a lot of platforms that kind of suppress conversations that you have. Does this worry you in the future where your children might not have the voice that you had growing up, that your father and mother were born into?
Yeah, it worries me, and I think that we've seen some movement in the right direction with that kind of stuff. Obviously, Elon taking over Twitter or X. I mean, I'll always call it Twitter.
He backs a lot of the things you discuss.
I don't know if he backs it or he just allows people to talk about it. I mean, he's took over the platform and said you could talk about what you want.
Because he helped with the What is a Woman, right? Because there was a little something. There was a little, when it first came out, it kind of got pushed down, and then he.
Well, we were a year after it came out, we were going to put it on Twitter, on the platform for free for people to see it. And at first, we ran into some problem at Twitter where they were kind of like suppressing it.
This is before he took over?
No, this is after he took over.
Oh, really?
But then he caught wind of what was happening, and he stepped in and shut down the censorship.
Wait, how was that happening?
He ended up pinning the movie on his own page so more people could see it. It was like 880
Worked
million
out
views.
better.
But okay, so I want to take a step back. So check this out. You released something, but the guy who owns the company didn't know that they were suppressing it. That's crazy.
It is, but also this is growing pains. He had just taken over,
Got it.
so he's still flushing out these negative forces within the company, and it's an enormous company.
Do you blame companies for doing this, or do you blame some of the employees that have?
I think it's a mixture of both. I think in the case of that was an example where it wasn't so much the company doing it; it was like probably rogue employees who didn't like me, and were trying to shut it down. Also, in Elon's case, he has a whole other company where they're building rocket ships to go to space.
That's
so,
crazy. Dude.
Just low key.
Yeah. That's his side hustle is going to space.
The side quest on this guy is insane, dude.
There's been so many rockets being launched lately. Have you seen them?
Oh yeah, I love this stuff.
Crazy.
I know there are people who say it's a waste of time and resources. I could not disagree more.
I watched it for the first time in my life by not knowing. I didn't see that. Oh, they're going to be releasing one. I'm smoking weed, as like any idiot like me would be doing, and I'm riding a bike. I love being outside on my bike. So I'm not a social smoker. I'm a private smoker. I like to ride my bike.
Wait, you're on your bike, smoking weed, and watching the rocket launch?
So check this out. I don't know about the rocket launcher. So I'm at night, and I'm just riding my bike, smoking weed with my friend. I look up, and this looks in my mind like a freaking nuke is like coming at us. And I'm like, that's it. We're dead. This is it. And I just start freaking out. And it was just
He called me.
Are you sure that it actually happened and it wasn't the weed?
No, it was the rocket, because I took off home and I was like, babe, we're going to die. And she was like, no, Elon just tweeted. It's just a satellite.
Well, it's...
But you're right about the people that smoke weed. I'm starting to realize that.
Am I right? I'm glad that, some people get pretty emotional about it when I criticize them.
Nah, I'm an idiot for doing that, for sure.
Well, anyway, yeah. But Elon has other more important things. So when things happen on Twitter, I don't really hold it against him. But these other platforms, think like YouTube, for example. I do worry we're going to get to a point where they just say we're shut. You just can't. You can't talk about the things that we don't like at all anymore. We're done with it. We haven't gotten to that point yet, but
I feel like
at any time
we've gotten a gray zone of it. There's for example, there's a lot of things that you post that get suppressed and get pushed.
Yeah,
down,
I mean, right? They kind of I've been demonetized, but they haven't gotten to the point where they're just saying, okay, you have opinions we don't like, you cannot be on it, and just wipe out everybody. They pick their spots, I guess is what I'm saying.
Did you see how Mark just confessed about Mark Zuckerberg, by the way? I'm just pointing from Facebook. He just confessed.
You guys are on first name basis.
I've never met him. No, I just said Mark, and I forgot his last name, and for a second, and I was like, he's not going to understand what I'm talking about.
Just Zuck is what I call him.
Zuck.
Yeah.
So me and Zuck, right? No. So Zuckerberg just announced that he did take part in suppressing.
Yeah.
Do you know why he would do something like that?
Well, why
confess.
Yeah, why he would confess is the interesting thing, and that's part of the positive trend right now in big tech, in the big tech free speech world. And I don't know, it seems like he's being more open and honest about these things recently. I'm not sure.
He's having a little glow up. He's looking good.
Right, he got into MMA, and all of a sudden he's a right-wing radical. I don't know what's going on.
Maybe he doesn't want to be so one-sided anymore. Maybe he's seeing such a much of a switch, and people are starting to balance out maybe a little bit. And he's like, okay.
He said he got pushback from the government to do it, though.
It could also be that he's realizing it's bad for business to alienate half of the country. Could be that. I don't know.
Do you think Elon, by making X a free speech type of platform. Do you think it's helped other platforms like have to chase that type of caliber of openness? Like, do you think that other platforms lost like users because they're like, oh, we'll just go over here because you could actually speak?
That could be part of it. But I think a lot of these platforms are they're just run by people who don't. I think some of them are willing to sacrifice the money for the sake of suppressing views that they don't agree with, which is you think that dollar is king, and ultimately, if you're in business, you'll just do whatever will make you money. But recently, it seems like that's not the case. I mean, you see it even in Hollywood, where there's certain kinds of movies that they could make that would make like billions of dollars. The audience would love it. And every once in a while, they'll throw a movie like that out there, and it does enormously well. But they don't keep making those movies. They put out movies that like alienate, again, half of the country because of the wokeness and the politics they shove into it, and this over focus on representation, and every movie has to be diverse and all this nonsense. And they do this even though it is obviously hurting their bottom line. And if they would just give up on that, and not even like, I'm not saying Hollywood should become right. It'd be great if they became right wing, in my opinion. But even if they went back to the kind of like Hollywood liberalism of the 90s, they could make much more money. But it seems like they're willing to sacrifice that for the sake of the agenda.
Yeah. I mean, it used to be so, like hush hush. I mean, you didn't talk about the political party that you stood up for, and husbands and wives remember like back in the day, people were married and they had different political views, which I think would be very hard to be in a household if you had different political views.
I couldn't do that.
But yeah, it's true that, the media was more balanced. But I feel like we're starting to go back to that direction.
Well, I would say on the marriage thing, that I think you can be married, because I get this question a lot from like younger single people that say they're having trouble finding someone, and they say, well, like, okay, I met a girl who's liberal. Should that be a deal breaker? And I think that you can disagree. You have to have your fundamental values have to align. You have to fundamentally agree on the basic like meaning and purpose of life, the really basic foundational level. If you don't align on that, then I think you're in it. I'm not saying it can't work, but you're setting yourself up for failure. But if you have that, then you can have all kinds of disagreements. Sort of further downstream, you can have all kinds of disagreements.
There's a Bible verse that sums that up, and it says, "Be careful what you mix your yoke with." And I think, like for example, if you want to raise your kids in a Christian home, it'd be tough if the other person wants to raise their kids in a different religion view.
Right.
Like that could be a little separating. Are you Christian?
I am, yeah.
Okay. So from like a Christian's perspective, like we saw Christ come down and like disagree with us completely, but he did it in a loving way and in an inviting way. Do you feel like us on the right are taking that approach, or do you think we've been a little bit bitter and fed up and now we're kind of slapping them?
Certainly not. Well, if generally speaking, there's plenty of us that could be doing a better job of it. I mean, I could do a better. We all could use improvement, but I think that we talk about Christ's ministry on earth sometimes as though he was like this Mr. Rogers type figure, or even like some kind of hippie, go along to get along kind of guy. And then when you open up the Gospels, that's not exactly what you find. In fact, you find that Jesus, you find him confronting sin, confronting hypocrites, corruption, calling people out, being, in at least one case, being actually physically aggressive, driving the money changers out of the temple.
Whipping them out, yeah.
Right. And there's a couple of different depictions of that scene in the Gospels, but in one of them it says he fashioned a whip. Mm-hmm. So that means like he took the time to actually make one. It was like premeditated assault on the money changers. And then, but he was also gentle and loving as well. So what that tells us is that these things are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah,
you could be passionate, even aggressive at times when it calls for it, and also gentle and loving. You could be all those things at once. And it also tells you that, like, if your version of Christianity has no room at all for the more aggressive, condemning sin approach, like, if you're not doing any of that, then you actually are not following Christ's example, because I think in Christianity today, and this is, you know, broadly speaking, most churches you go to, you're not going to hear a lot of talk about sin. You're not going to hear people talking about guilt. There's not a lot of condemnation of sin that goes on.
Yeah.
But when you read the Gospels, you find that all over the place. You know,
Well,
that shouldn't be the only
no
message.
condemnation from the Holy Spirit, right? So there's conviction. So when Jesus came
Well, it's
down,
condemnation of sin.
yeah, but we're not made to do that. That's for the Word. That's the Holy Spirit to judge. He didn't ask us to go do that. Let me give you an example. I agree with a lot of your viewpoints, mostly all of them, and I honestly don't have a crazy bad way of like the way you do it. I think it's funny and I think it's lighthearted. I'm not picking at what you're doing. I just see that you could motivate another individual to take it in a wrong approach. For example, like one time I sat with this gentleman that was in the midst of a transition. And to be honest, at the point in my life, I was very frustrated over this type of conversation. I thought this was dumb. I didn't want to hear this man's story. But God put it in my heart to just hear him more than speak. And when I just sat there and I heard him, he actually just broke down in front of me and explained a lot of things that I didn't even think was even possible. Like this man was running away from his identity because he was molested. And when he broke that down for me, I tend to not get angry at that. Like I understand a trauma to make you want to run away. And when I sat with him and I walked him out of this hole and I said, hey, you know, I understand the direction you're taking and I get why you want to take that approach. But I could explain to you in this way that Jesus can make you new, but not in the way that you want to be new. And when I sat there and I held his hand and I took that approach where I'm speaking to him like God willing, somebody will speak to your daughter one day that they disagree with, more of an understanding and a loving approach, he got off. And now he went back to being what he was born to be. And I didn't take out the whip like Jesus did at the church. I did it exactly how Jesus did with his disciples. I disagree with you. I'm going to act and behave a certain way. You could join me or you could leave me. Mm-hmm. And I just want to make sure that like we're representing that side, because I come to these events and parties and I'm just seeing anger and frustration and a lot of hatred. And so what I'm scared of is that we're caught in the middle of it. As much as we think that they're wrong, we're also might be in the wrong aspect of starting the war as well instead of putting it out.
Yeah. Well, I think I don't think I disagree with anything that you just said there, and I think your approach in that scenario and that kind of interpersonal, you know, one-on-one ministering to someone, that was 100% the right approach. And that's also what I'm talking about, that your approach should be tailored to the circumstance and to the audience. So that's why we can't say, well, is it okay for a Christian to yell and be angry? The answer is it depends on what's the what's the audience, what's the situation, and it really depends on that. So if you are, so this is a good example so you're talking about a trans-identified male, right?
Yeah.
When you're talking to someone, again, personally like that, who's coming to you for help, or at least is confiding in you.
Yeah.
You don't want to yell at them. You don't want to condemn them. You don't want to heap any more shame on them than they already obviously feel.
Yeah.
So they're of gentle, patient, but firm approach. You're not going to compromise on what you know to be true, but you also want to make them feel comfortable to talk to you and confide to you. That's 1,000% the right approach in that circumstance. And then, but then on the let's say you're talking to a broader audience about the issue of gender ideology.
Yeah.
I think many times in that circumstance, it calls for a more
direct,
more passionate, more even tonally aggressive approach, and even condemnation. When I say condemnation, I don't mean condemning people. I mean they're castrating and butchering and sterilizing kids. It's an evil sin.
It's not the approach we would like them to take.
Right. And so we're condemning that. Like, you're harming children. We condemn that action.
Yeah.
That action is evil. And we want to make that clear. We want to draw clear lines, and people know that we believe what we're saying and we're serious about it. So I think you could take that approach generally. You're talking to someone one-on-one. You take a more gentle approach. So I don't think it's like an either-or scenario.
I just think your perspective is like, hey, you guys are wrong, and this is why you guys are wrong, which is fine. Because that if we didn't have people to stand up for what's right and wrong, then we would be in a chaotic situation. But I think that we looked at them, and I'm saying me for myself, because I would watch these videos and it would entice me to be angry. So then I would look at them like they're opposite from us. They're not with us. But that is not the nature that we should be involved in. It should be like, no, these are our people. We just got to make sure that they're cadenced. Like, for giving you an example, this gentleman that I was talking to, I mean, his own family took advantage of him. If he's going out into the world and he needs help, and he's standing there picketing and standing up for what he believes in, because in this moment in his time in his life, he thinks that the people he's with is actually rooting for him, and he doesn't know, he's not wise enough to know that they actually don't give a shit about what's going on with you. They have their own agenda and they're pushing. There's a lot of people on that side of the fence that will eventually come there with us, but I think instead of reaching out and pulling them out of the cold water, I've realized through the nature of TikTok and Instagram and watching these debates and getting angry, I just want to kick them back into the water. But that's just because what I'm being programmed into believing. But in reality, I think this child needs a rescuer. And I think you want to go save these people. And I think that your approach is doing that. I just pray that we could get to a place that we could do it in a way where it's like way less involving anger. When I came at it within a loving approach and I talked to that gentleman, I realized that like, oh man, there is a way out of this without raising a sword. It's just raising a hand to lift them.
And you're also, there should be, especially on this issue, you recognize that the person you're talking to has been deceived and misled. So they are a victim. You know, I complain a lot about this victimization culture. Everybody wants to be a victim. But the truth is that someone who's, you know, gender confused, trans identified, they in fact are a victim. They just aren't, they may not be a victim in the way they think they are, but they've been misled and deceived by this agenda. They've been brainwashed by it, and they don't realize it. That's part of the nature of brainwashing. So that's another reason. That calls for, like, yeah, we have to recognize that in our approach and show that we have a real concern for that. I also think that part of what you're bumping into, maybe I'm wrong, but part of it is just, you can only get so far in general by like arguing and presenting arguments.
Yeah.
And so what we see online is just a lot of people arguing, presenting arguments back and forth. Some people are good at presenting logical, intelligent arguments. A lot of people are very bad at it. And so it's just like this mess of people yelling back and forth. But that kind of takes me back to why I really enjoy making the films, because it's another way of approaching this issue and getting the message across
without screaming and calling
right.
names. Yeah, that's why I love the approach.
And it's a more creative. It feels more, even aside from the message, it feels more like creatively fulfilling.
Yeah, it's an art piece.
Yeah. You're letting them speak too. You're just
right.
I love the way that you handle that. That's cool, because also you're not tricking them. Either they're doing what they're doing, and you're just, hey, I'm letting you share it on my stage.
And I think that conservatives should, because that's part of the problem, is that conservatives generally, especially over the last couple of decades, our primary way of getting our message out has been to just argue it, to just come out and say, you know, look in the camera, here's what I believe, and here's why you should agree with me. There's a place for that. Like I said, I do it every day. I have to hope that it has some value, but there are, that leaves on the table so many other more effective ways to get your message out. And art is one, and we conservatives have abandoned art almost entirely, and until recently. And I think that maybe that trend it's coming back, is reversing. I hope.
Do you know Angel Studio?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm a big fan of them.
Huge fan.
I love the fact that they put the direction of a lot of their tailor cut movies or shows is they put it in the audience hands, the guild's hands, and they're like, hey, what do you guys like in this direction, not in this direction, instead of going to people that fund the movie and be like, hey, what do you want to program these people into thinking?
Yeah, they do great work. I was just talking recently about one of their most recent films was Cabrini. Did you see that? Mm-mm. It's about Saint Cabrini, who ministering to like poor immigrant families in, I think, the late 19th century, I believe. Anyway, it's a good movie, and it's but also it's like it's artistic. Like it feels like a piece of art that you're watching.
Yeah, they do great jobs.
That's what I took away from it. It feels like an actual piece of art.
It's not just trying to get across just their message. They're able to like capture you with their shots and their direction, and it's beautiful.
And the problem is that for years before that, you had the kind of Christian film industry, and I'm not knocking them. They did good work in their own way, but the problem with Christian films for so long is that they put the message way before the story. Like what mattered was the message before the story, and you could tell that with the final product.
What a good reflection view of that.
Right. It was like basically they had a homily they wanted to impart, and they just packaged it in a story, and they didn't really care much about. Okay, yeah, the writing isn't great, but who cares because the message is bad. Yeah. Acting is bad, but who cares?
I totally agree. It got unfortunately a little cheesy.
Yeah. Right.
Mel Gibson did a pretty good job at it, though. He crushed it.
And Mel Gibson, like Passion of the Christ, that's a good example of what happens when you don't do that. Like he realizes that we're telling a story. You're telling the most compelling and fascinating story of all time. And the story has to come first because this is what this is. This is a film. And if you get the story right, then you'll get the message across. And I think the interesting thing is that now you have like these liberal. It seems like the left is kind of making the mistake that Christian films made for so many years.
What was that?
Well, then now you have these. The left is doing the same thing.
The message without the artistic.
Right, they put the message first in their films, like whatever whatever the latest like Star Wars, what is it? The Acolyte, I think,
or like Men in Black. It's women in black. You're like, all right, well,
exactly. They take this stuff and the story comes second. What comes first is we have our liberal message we want to get across: representation, diversity, equity, inclusion, and they get that into the movie first, and then they figure out how to build a story around it, and then the movie comes out and it sucks because the story was secondary in their on their list of priorities, and you can tell.
Yeah, it drives me nuts. It's because like our attention spans, like kids' attention spans, are really small, and so they're like, how can we just fit all the best scenes that happen in a movie without actually having like character arcs, and like giving it room to have a story? And yeah, we've lost like the art of movies. It's just long TikToks.
That's right. That's a whole other spiel, but kids' entertainment in particular is really. Even aside from the wokeness in it, I think a lot of it is just terrible for that reason, that it's just like overstimulating, just shooting light and sound and noise into kids' eyeballs and their ears constantly. The kids soak in all this stuff and become, perpetually distracted.
Yeah, no, they
can't. And then we turn around and say, we have our kids on these screens like from birth, constant stimulation, constant noise. And then they go to school when they're 6 years old, they're first grade, and they have trouble paying attention. And then we say, oh, he must be diseased. He has ADHD.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, maybe he's easily distracted because he's surrounded by distraction every freaking second of his life.
Yeah.
That could be it.
Even as an adult, you notice the difference. Like when you start, like I've noticed the difference since TikTok's been around. Like, I get so lost, like watching videos. And now I find myself that when I don't have anything playing, if I'm cooking, if I'm doing my makeup, I feel like I need to put something on and like listen to it. And I never used to be that way.
She's an iPad kid.
So imagine So imagine a child, like, you know what I mean? They're throwing these tantrums now. They scream if, you know what I mean, they can't have entertainment. It's really sad.
I think it's kind of like the Coca-Cola theory. When Coca-Cola came out, they're like, hey guys, why don't we just put cocaine in this? And they're like, it's a hit. People keep flying off the market. But I think eventually people are like, maybe we should not put cocaine in the Coke. But Coke just, went into a different direction, and now you kids could drink Coke, I could drink Coke, and we're not on drugs. I think social media is so new. I started on Vine, and when I started it, I didn't even know what the hell was going on. I didn't know you could get brand deals. We were like the first wave of content creators. And now I'm watching, before, bro, you take a gallon of milk at a grocery store, slam it on the ground, you're like, this kid's a psycho. Now you're setting pedos on fire, like on a live stream. That's crazy. Like, where are we taking this where it's growing so fast? I think there's gonna need to be something to step in and just be like, maybe we should like put some boundaries around this thing.
Yeah, and this is also why I don't, none of my kids have phones, they don't have iPads, they don't have any screens. Like, we have a TV, they watch that in a very it's like very limited amount of time with the TV. I just don't think it is like cocaine. It's like especially with kids, they take to the screen stuff so easily and so quickly, and it becomes habit forming. Basically, it becomes an impulse really quickly. And I think there's just, if you give your 9-year-old a phone, there's almost no chance that phone will not become the center of his life by like this afternoon. I mean, it immediately happens. Because I tell you, the one exception we make is we take long car rides. We'll do these marathon car rides as a family, like 20 hours. Because we're
That's
going back
masochistic.
to the woods.
Yeah. But anyway, that's the only time we do give the kids iPads for that.
You don't even remember their name.
We give them the things, tablets. That was what I was looking for. We give them the tablets. No internet, but there's like games and books on it.
Jesus
and
Christ.
we do that only
So funny, dude.
right, only for the car rides. But then when we get out of the car, we arrive at our destination. There's this detox period because they're like jonesing for the tablet for like 2 days afterwards, and then they get over it and they're fine. But it really has. I don't know what it is, but there's just even little kids like you have like a little 2-year-old will steal your phone, and it's not even on. Like my 2-year-old son the other day, he had a temper tantrum because I took my phone away from him because he stole it. It wasn't even on. He was just holding that object for something. There's something like primal about it.
It's so funny.
Some new instincts. It's crazy.
So yeah, I think you got to keep your kids away from it. And then also, and that says nothing about the type of content that, like you just mentioned,
They're raising your kids.
right. And it's I was thinking the other day about, because I was scrolling Twitter, and I saw some video pop up, and it was just like a guy who had been shot. It was like a guy that just been shot in the head.
Bro. Are you talking about X, yeah?
Yeah.
So, I got to talk to Elon about this. He traumatizes me way too much. Like, you can't wake up in the morning and watch these type of videos,
Yeah,
bro.
it's like snuff films constantly.
What is this? How do I have first of all, I need to know, how is the cartel even uploading these videos? Or you watch somebody's head get sawed off? First of all, why has nobody reported that video? But if somebody talks about how somebody feels that video is reported, but not the woman's head getting sawed off,
Right.
I think Elon needs to take it back just a tiny bit. I think he gave too much freedom.
Yeah, I think. And I think he'd probably agree that snuff films are not supposed to be on the platform, but it becomes a matter of content moderation. There's so much of it now. And you said traumatized. I actually I don't use the word lightly. I think the word traumatized is used way too often and too lightly. But I think we actually are all traumatized.
No. I'm traumatized by that platform. I barely get on it. I don't like it.
Because just like, I'll tell you what it is. Not only are you viewing death, like real people are dying and you're viewing it, and that could be traumatic enough. It's the context. It's like you're viewing it as this chain of just content. And so the other day, like I was saying, I was just scrolling through it. A video popped up and it was a guy that had been shot in the head and he was dead. And like, I didn't want to see that, but I saw it. I kept scrolling. Next thing you know, I'm watching a video of like a polar bear falling into a pool or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, it warps your mind to just go to just that, going from that to that so often, so much. I can remember the first time I saw someone die. And if you're in the military, if you work in the emergency room, if you're a first responder, you're around death. You see it. But the rest of us, we don't see it.
Yeah.
At least prior to this recent rash of death videos on the internet. So first time I actually saw it, I remember I was watching Fox News. This is a few years ago. This is like 6-7 years ago. And they were following a car chase live. It was back when Shepard Smith was an anchor. And they're following the car chase and watching the car chase, because who doesn't watch the car chase? And then the guy hops out of his car and just without warning pulls a gun out and shoots himself in the head. And Fox broadcast it because they didn't know. And they tried to dump it. They got to the dump too late, so you saw it. And I remember being like, it was the first time I'd ever seen that. And I was really unsettled and disturbed by it. I'd never seen someone, it was a real person that just died. And it was a big deal at the time. They had to apologize. It was like, how could you let people see that? And now I think, well, you see that, you can see that 5 times a morning, on social media.
And worse, because the POV is like clear HD. You're right there.
Right. And worse because you don't have the anchor coming on after to apologize and to acknowledge how horrible it was. Now it's just, oh, okay. Well, we all wake up in the morning. The first thing we do is grab our phone. I mean, I'll admit that I do that. It's like, I think it's an awful habit.
Your children are watching this and they're like, what the
Right.
They have no internet for a 20-hour drive. You're rolling over, grabbing the phone.
100%. I'm a total hypocrite. And first thing you do is, and so that could also, like, one of the first things you see in the morning. You just woke up. You're saying hello to a new day. You're laying in bed, and 30 seconds after opening your eyes, you're seeing grotesque violence.
What happened to me that day?
Oh yeah, dude. Georgie was down. He like woke up and then he like was lost on Twitter watching these deaths. And I'm like, why did you stay on? He's like, I don't know. I just stayed on. And then he was like out the whole day, like feeling.
It wasn't even the videos that like scarred me. I grew up where I saw a lot of things that I probably shouldn't have seen growing up. The first time I ever watched somebody die, I was very young. It was at a wedding. Somebody pulled out a gun and shot him. It was across the street from me. I thought they were playing with fireworks until I saw his body fold in a certain way. And that stuck with me, dude. That stuck with me for a fucking long time. I mean, as anybody. Like, I still remember my mom and dad grabbing me, throwing myself down. Like, that was a remembering moment. I saw somebody. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because I'm like traumatized. But I'm watching this video and I see somebody fold in the same way that man folded when I saw him in real life. And so I was like, oh, so it brought that memory back. I saw this. I immediately paused the video because I don't want to watch anymore. But then I'm like, I wonder how scarred the comment sections are. Dog, it was like Saturday Night Live in the comment section. The #1 comment liked was like, that guy folded like my lawn chair. And I'm like, whoa, bro, these guys are heartless. They are watching straight up murder and they're thinking, what's a funny thing I could comment about that? Yeah. That scares me. Because at that point, it's like, you watch Hunger Games, it's everybody fighting for themselves. You see Fortnite, they're fighting and looting. And all these things are about fighting and looting and staying alive. And now we're watching the human race being okay with this type of behavior. At what point are they going to start acting like this type of behavior? That's my fear.
Yeah, I think it makes people into sociopaths where they just don't have empathy. Mm-hmm. There's a real like chronic lack of empathy in our culture.
Has that ever happened before? Because everybody thinks that their time is like their time of like the end of the world. But somebody said to me the other day, he goes, it's been like this forever. It's just never been like broadcasted like this.
You could point out that ancient Rome, they had the Colosseums and people went to watch human beings get torn to shreds by lions. And that sort of thing.
Didn't I say that the other day? Yeah.
Well, it was a good point.
It's true. It's so true.
So, and I think about that because like it is true. It's like, okay, is this really? There's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah, we used to gather around and be like, that guy did bad. Let's all gather and watch this person's head get cut off, and let's all clap and enjoy. That's what they used to do.
But at least there's public executions for a long time, which ironically I'd actually be in favor of bringing back, even though I just said all this.
All right, now let's circle back, Matt. We're going to circle back to that. What do you feel like would be okay for a crime for like public execution?
Let's see. Well, the list is so long that it's hard to even No, I think,
damn it, Matt! I just told you I agreed with a lot of your perspectives. Now I'm retracting one.
Well, I think you have someone, child rapist. Okay, let's say
that.
Okay. Lowest of the low.
Yeah. Do you make it quick or do you drag it as a show?
I don't think that
we're getting to the questions you want to ask.
Yeah, I think you make it quick, but I also I do think there's some value. Sort of. There's value in that because here's the thing. I think there are things that you can do in life where you've just punched your ticket out of this life.
Yeah.
You don't get to be a part of society anymore.
Yeah.
If you do these things. Mm-hmm. A lot of forms of murder would qualify. Victimizing a child in that way, other things. And I also think that, okay, if we're going to say that and we're going to do that, then I think it's almost like society's responsibility to face that. I think with the death penalty now, we try to sanitize it, and that's a lot of the lethal injection. They try to like make it seem almost like a medical procedure, when actually a firing squad or a hanging is probably less. Is even probably more painless than lethal injection, but it's more brutal, and you can't. If you watch that, someone's being killed, and there's no way of getting around it. But I think that as a society, we should, there are things that you get killed for legally, and it's justice. And I think that we should have to face that. And
Trump
it's a display of justice, which I think could benefit society. A lot of this violence you see on social media is just meaningless, casual violence is very different from we are enacting justice because you have done something that warrants it. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, Trump wants to do that for child predators. He wants to bring back the death penalty for that.
I think it's crazy we don't already have that. I mean, why? If you have the death penalty, why would that not qualify?
I have a family friend who was an FBI agent, and I asked him, I go, what project, like, do you remember and you'll never forget? And he was a part of one of the biggest sting operations for child predators. But the thing that I asked him, like, what hurt you the most? He goes, we had to let, sadly, some go so we could stop the majority of it. We wanted to figure out where it was being traced to. And it was like this online type of thing where they would do it live or something. And so all these countries gathered together, and because it was a worldwide thing. And they were like, okay, we're in front of the guy's house here. We're in front of these guys' house here. And this was like France and America and all these other countries. And he started laughing. He goes, you just hear America, we got them, they're arrested. France is like, bonjour, we arrested them. And then like all the other countries like, we got them. And then Iraq goes, they're dead. We're like, whoa. So like, but if you go to the Middle East, you will never see that type of behavior. So it got me thinking like, yeah, I personally wouldn't want death penalty. I would want them to be locked up. That way they have time to repent and find God and go into a path where they need to go to. But in our country, that's a really big problem. In a lot of countries, that's a very big problem. In Iraq and all these other countries, that is not a problem. Because if you get caught, not only will they brutally kill you in front of people, but then your whole family's like embarrassed and your reputation's like destroyed. And so I understand now why you would like that and why Trump would want that, because the numbers would significantly drop. I mean, versus you going to jail or brutally murdered in front of people, I think you would make the decision of not doing that.
Yeah, I think, and even aside from the death penalty, we just need people talk about criminal justice reform and prison reform.
What do you mean by that?
Well, that's what people talk about prison reform, and what is usually meant is we need to have fewer people in prison. But I think we need prison reform where we have more people in prison. I think we have an under-incarceration problem in this society. There should be a lot more people in jail who aren't right now.
They let them out.
Yeah, I was gonna say, haven't they let a lot of people?
Exactly, that's the problem.
Why do they let them out?
Well, because it's you know, you have these woke DAs in these cities that believe in this criminal justice reform nonsense, and they think that, you know, they think first of all, they think the justice system is inherently racist to begin with, and so they want to give people a second chance and then a third chance and a fourth chance and a fifth chance. And I think they really, even though it's the justice system, they have no sense of justice. And that's a real thing. You need that in society. And so I agree that if you have a harsher penalties, it does have this effect of dissuading future criminals maybe. And that's important. But even more important is just the simple fact of justice. That you have done something. Like this is what justice means, definitionally. It means that you putting everything where it belongs, basically. It's like giving something or someone what it is due. That's justice. And you commit a heinous crime, you are due. You are owed a harsh punishment. That's justice. And if we don't do that, we have a society without justice. And that's what we see, you know, around us.
Well, the justice system, I mean, we were just talking about this yesterday with, we had a guest, his name was Johnny Chang. And I mean, I knew the system, you know, was a little bit off, the justice system, but the things that he shared with us, you know, he went to juvenile detention, but the one it's even worse than that. It's a different grade of it. And he was telling us how right there, the I forget the name of the police who are in the jail, the
guards.
Yeah, the guards, that at the end of the day, the corruption is with them and the things that they would do to the inmates, to these children that are in there, right, and raping them. And they're the ones who are supposed to be keeping the justice and putting these kids back on track, and they're making the problem worse, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, how do we get to a point where we can really wash out all these guards and these people who are, you know, ruining the system, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that comes back to having a real sense of justice in your society. And if no matter where you are on the social ladder, if you've committed one of these crimes, you're going to face the penalty. If you don't have that, you end up with chaos, you know, outside of prison and inside it too.
You were recently on Joe Rogan's podcast, and you guys were talking about how an inmate changed his identity so he could be put into a women's facility. Mm-hmm. Does that happen a lot?
It does happen. There's no way to know how often it happens because it's not the kind of thing that they tell us. And
how does it get there? Like, how does it? How does it?
This is the result of gender ideology. It's the result of the idea that we have to affirm whatever anybody thinks about themselves. We have to affirm their perception of themselves.
Okay.
And so if a male inmate says, "Hey, I feel like I'm a woman," well, if we are prisoners of gender ideology, then we have to say, "Okay, well, you're a woman. I guess you belong in a women's prison," which is crazy, of course. It should be an easy answer. You say to the male inmate, "Well, you're not a woman, so you're staying in the male prison." "Oh, but I feel like one." "Okay, well, you can feel like one all you want. You're going to feel like one with the men. Good luck with that." But this is the logical result of it. And the problem is when you ask how often does this happen where male inmates go to female prisons, we know of plenty of cases where it happened. But the women in these prisons where they're sending in these, oftentimes they're sex offender, violent criminal men, they have no way of speaking out about it. Well, they can't protect themselves. They can't, they can't tweet about it. They're in prison. So they have no way of speaking out about it.
That's tough.
How often has there been, you end up with women, you could have a woman who is locked in a jail cell with a man 3 times her size, 2 times her size, who's a rapist. I mean, these kind of things could happen and have happened. There's no way for that woman to protect herself, and also there's no way for her to tell the world that this is happening to her. You have to rely on the jail to tell us, and they're not going to tell us. So, yeah, we don't know how widespread or serious the problem is, but I suspect it's pretty bad.
It's awful.
That could be scary. It's very different than like the Olympics, where you're just like, all right, dude, I worked hard to be here, and now this gentleman that just transferred over just knocked me off of a gold that I try to win my whole life. That's like, it's irritating. It's worth the conversation, but somebody's like safety and like ability not to be able to speak about it, it sounds like a nightmare. It sounds very scary.
Yeah, well, these are the nightmares that come from subscribing to this idea that, like I said, that anyone can be whoever they want. We have to affirm. It's this idea of affirmation. It's become a buzzword.
Do you think this started with the? I'm sorry, I'm trying to make it a little bit lighter hearted, but do you think this started with everybody deserves a trophy?
I think that I don't know if it starts there, but that's part of it's a symptom.
Because that was my challenge growing up. That we're like, yo, this guy, he really tried. Let's give him a trophy. I'm like, he didn't try. He lost. Or if he did try harder. And like, they didn't build that character in kids to be like, you suck. You got 5th place. Your ass. And also, go back and practice.
And for the kids, it's not even like the kids aren't fooled by it. That was always the dumb thing about the participation trophies. I was a recipient of participation trophies. I played baseball as a kid. Little league baseball. I was terrible at it. I was really bad, and I was on a lot of bad teams, and we would still do the trophy ceremony at the end of the year.
So technically, this is your fault.
I guess it's my fault. Yeah.
Is this why you're doing this? Because you want to pay back what you like? It's kind of like Paul and Saul. Saul killed, and then he had to go back and fix what the problem that.
It's a deep-seated shame I have for receiving a participation trophy. Not only receiving it, but I'll admit, like, as a child, I had like a little trophy case in my room, or and I'll even admit there are probably times where I lied about if I had a friend over and they would see the trophies. Like, yeah, I got that I had 500 home runs one year, and I didn't want to tell them.
Of course.
You identified as a winner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
But I think that it is part of the same story, because it's like we have to affirm everyone. We can't give anyone bad news.
Yeah.
Right? Tell them that they lost. You're a loser. Do better next time.
Which is crazy. It's like kids not everybody's going to have a good skill. You know what I mean? Not everyone's going to be great at something,
Right. And then, so you're not good at this, especially as kids. I think this is an important message. Mm-hmm. You want to try hard, try to be your best. You could be trying to do something that you're just isn't for you. You're not good at it.
Yeah.
So, find your skill, find your avenue, find your lane,
Right? Like, are we stopping them from finding their next best thing because they think they're doing good at this one thing?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I wasted away in Little League Baseball for like 9 years. It was so bad for so long. I could be a whole nother person if I hadn't wasted. I could have been spending that time. I could be an astronaut right now or something.
Yeah, maybe you're a tennis player.
It was supposed to be you, not Elon.
I could be Elon Musk. Yeah,
you messed up, dude.
That's my rightful place.
You have a phenomenal beard, by the way. What ethnicity do you have that behind those like DNA that you like have that fantastic beard?
Irish.
Irish.
You know, mostly Irish.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know if they're known for their beards, but
I don't know.
I don't know either.
It's a good thing I asked that question towards the ending of the podcast. I feel like that one died out pretty
And
quick.
You can also, well, I mean, we could talk about beards. This is a whole other topic. I mean, I'm very
I'd love
passionate.
that because I have a beard and I'm trying to get mine to look as healthy
And you
as
can
yours.
attest to the fact because you thought that I was like 75 years old.
Yeah, 48.
You can attest to the fact I got a lot of gray in the beard.
I do. I have to color it.
Well, I get accused of coloring the beard. I get accused of using dye in my beard. I don't. And why would you want to dye it?
Well, I look like an upside down version of Mr. Sheffield. I just have like this just white patch right here.
It's dignified. Well, you embrace that. Like when you go gray, you embrace it. It gives you wisdom. It makes you look like you have wisdom.
I want to wait until my 40s at least to be a silver fox.
How old are you?
I'm 31.
Okay.
So I look older too.
I was going to say 35, so you're not far off.
Yeah. How old were you when you had your first kid?
26.
26.
Yeah.
That's me right now.
But I don't see you being pregnant. Give me a baby.
So you have no kids?
None. As of what I know.
Okay. Do you want to have kids?
You know what? Until I met Belle, I never wanted kids. I kind of wanted to just be like me and just rock out, be like a George Clooney. But I met Belle and I was like, I think it was the women that I was with where I was like, God, I hope my kids don't turn out like this girl. But then when I met Belle, I was like, man, I hope my kids don't turn out like me, bro. I want them to be like Belle. And so, yeah, now I want kids, and I want a lot of it. But also, is it funny that I didn't want it? And I think it's because of the society that we grow up in. They kind of teach you to, like, just be your own thing and, like, don't procreate.
Yeah, it's also different for men. Like, I had kids when I was 26. When I was 24, if you had asked me if I wanted kids, I would have said no.
Was it planned or an accident the first time?
Neither. You know, we weren't, like, trying not to, but, you know. Just say, hey man, whatever happens, happens. It was kind of our attitude. But
very hippie-like.
Yeah. Well, people know I'm very much a hippie.
Go with the flow, babe. Yeah. Go with the flow.
But I also think for men, it's like this is the difficult thing for men, I think, because I don't think men. It's like women. When you're a little girl, you play with a baby doll. So from like a very small age, you're kind of pretending to be, you know, you're kind of filling that maternal role in a very childlike way, right? You have the baby
100%.
doll, you got the play kitchen set and all that. Boys don't do that as much.
Yeah.
And so you might not know how much, I guess the long way of saying, you might not know how much you want to have kids until you have them.
Yeah.
I think that's the way it is for men a lot of the time. You just kind of have to like take the plunge, take the dive. You're kind of apprehensive and maybe a little bit scared about it, but you just do it because you know it's the right thing. And then you discover, and then once you have kids, you're like, I think back to my life before I had kids. The fact that I had a life before my kids existed is like mind boggling to me. And I think of that person as a whole different, like that guy is a whole different guy. It's not even me.
Yeah.
The difference is so stark.
Did it make you softer?
I don't think it did. I think if anything, it went the other way.
That's so funny.
What do you? Sorry, go ahead.
No, but you please go.
What do you think was your biggest learning lesson or learning curve with your kids?
Oh man, that's a good question.
Nice.
Biggest learning. It's because really it's like everything, you know. I guess it's just realize, because before you have kids, you have in your mind all of these things. You're like, when I'm a parent, I'm going to do this, this, and this. My kids will never do this. Like you see a kid having a temper tantrum in public or whatever. You say, when I'm a parent, that's never going to happen. And then I guess the learning curve is when you actually have kids in real life, you realize like none of that, that's all out the window. Now you're in the real world with kids and you have to figure out how to do this in real life. So it's just like, it's a constant learning curve, I think, every second of the day.
Do you get worried? Like, Reed was just making fun of me because like my cat has like a small scratch on it, and I'm freaking out. I got him blood work. I got all this stuff. And he's like, dude, it's over for you and your dad. You're not going to be able to even move. And I blame my mother because she passed me the inheritance of paranoia.
Yeah.
And I feel like if I had a daughter, I'm just going to like tape her to my belly like a kangaroo and just like, you ain't leaving. And that's kind of like my vibe that I'm going on right now. Do you feel like you could let them out of your sight, or do you just get like so uncomfortable? Because like
it is tough. I do get really worried. I don't think you ever get past that. I think every parent has certain things that you're especially paranoid about, unreasonably so. I mean, you can't be overly paranoid about everything, or literally they would just be taped to you and you wouldn't be able to operate. But you end up, like, one of my things is choking. I'm really terrified of my kids choking, especially when they're younger. And I don't know why. It's just this thing that I developed. And so especially kids from like 1 to 3, I can barely eat dinner with them because I'm so worried about it.
Do you have that device?
We do have the device.
I got everybody. I love that device. That's how messed up I am.
We have the device, but the thing is, like, it takes so long to go get the device.
No, you have to put it in a place so you go where you're grabbing food. Like mine's right there where like you're eating. Like you got to put it in a place, like tape it underneath the table for God's sake. Like you need it when you need it. You can't like. So it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. You got like 10 of them
taped around the house.
You have no idea how. Like I have covered every ground.
What do you have but you have no kids. So it's just for you?
Yeah, it's for us.
It's for adults.
Okay.
I don't think you understand how bad it's going to be for me as a kid. Like my kids are not allowed to eat; they drink. That's
Maybe you shouldn't have kids. Actually,
I don't know if I should, dude. I think
I worry a little bit. I never thought I would be the one to be like, they're fine, you know, like, but that's
this girl's
be
like,
me.
Stop, you're being a dad. When we're on a bike, 2 seconds later, she falls on her face. I was like, dude,
no, I
like,
didn't. Don't pay me out like that because
Belle, don't make me do this right now because I will unfold your lack of awareness. You run into walls that have been there for 5 years.
I'm clumsy. Doesn't mean I'm not.
It was cute when we first started dating, and I was like, oh, look at her. But now I'm like, dude, chill out. Like, that brain, me and you are one now. She keeps bumping her head everywhere, and my kids are going to come out like this because she doesn't know where the wall is. So this is our thing. We'll come back to this episode.
It feels like a little bit like a couples counseling thing going on here.
So what do you think about that?
You kind of look like a counselor, dude. Like he wears that type of button up so he could feel like he's with us, but we know you're not with us.
I would be a terrible counselor. I'd be the worst counselor. I don't have the patience. I hear people complaining about their problems. I'm just like, just go.
Just go. That's his advice. Just go.
Well, that's my advice for like 90% of complaints people have. Is just stop being that way. Just stop, go, leave. Stop doing that. I don't know what to tell you.
That's so funny, dude.
Don't think about it. You know who you sound like is Seth Rogen.
I was going to say that. Yeah, you do sound like Seth Rogen.
Did you ever get that?
I haven't, and I wish that I never did.
Why?
Get that.
Why?
I sound like Seth Rogen. Like,
well, how do you take that as an insult?
Hey, you know what? No.
I have myself said
just
that
go
Seth
with it.
No. Seth Rogen sounds like a Muppet.
Whoa. Not a Muppet. Just like a pothead.
He sounds like a stoned Muppet.
He has like an iconic...
And you're telling me that's what I sound like.
He has an iconic, deep, rumbling voice, and he's like giving word. Like, it's a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing.
Okay.
Belle,
well, now Seth Rogen...
You're going farther down.
I'm so offended.
You're so offended. Oh, sorry. I offended Matt Walsh.
I'm devastated.
Well, that's it for today's episode, guys. Thank you so much for watching. And before we head out, man, I just want to let you know I really had a pleasure talking to you. I hope we get to do this again. And I can't wait for Am I Racist?
I appreciate it, man. It's a great conversation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.